it's Mrs. Copley, and today we are going to read a story about Curious George. I brought him home with me because I have a whole bunch of stories on Curious George, and I thought I would read you one today. And since it's Mathematician Monday, this one actually has to do with math. It's called Curious George Learns to Count from 1 to 50. This is George. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. This morning, George was curious about numbers. His friend, the man with the yellow hat, had been teaching him to count. Already, George could count to 5 on one hand and to 10 with his 2 feet. "Good job, George," said his friend, "but you can count more than your fingers and toes. We're going into the town today. I'll bet you we can find lots of things to count along the way." This is a really big book, guys. Look at all the Curious George stories in it. The number 50 sounds like a lot to George. He was curious. Could he find 50 things to count? First, George counted his bed. 1. Then he counted 2 blankets. He tossed his pillows and counted to 1, 2, 3. He counted 4 legs on his bed and 5 pool toys. What else could George count? Why, there were lots of things in the toy box. There were 6 toy boats, 7 cars, 8 trucks, 9 stuffed animals, and 10 dolls. George followed one bouncing ball into his friend's room. The man with the yellow hat was getting dressed. George wanted to get dressed up too. He saw 11 hats to choose from, 12 ties, 13 socks, and 14 shoes. Do y'all think we're going to go all the way up to 50? Ooh, that's a lot. In the bathroom, George's friend had just finished brushing his teeth. "I'm going to make breakfast, George," he said. But George was still busy counting. He counted 15 blue tiles, 16 rubber ducks, and 17 shower rings. It was fun to count upside down. Then George drew a surprise for his friend, 18 toothpaste pitchers. That does not sound like a good monkey right there. That was a naughty monkey. Drew on the bathtub. In the kitchen, George found more things to count. He stacked up 19 plates, 20 bowls, and 21 cups. He arranged 22 straws and 23 napkins and 24 spoons. Then George counted out 25 berries. "Don't forget to count out pancakes," the man said. George counted while his friend flipped. 26. When George was full and his plate was empty, he was ready to count outside. He had 26 pancakes. Goodness gracious. That is way too many pancakes. I'll throw up, I think. In the backyard, George counted 27 clouds floating by and 28 apples on a tree. There were lots to do outside. George played with 29 bugs and gathered 30 acorns. He found 31 snails and arranged 32 sticks to create a design. Then George smelled the daisies and he picked 33. In his front yard, George counted 34 noisy birds and 35 leaves blowing in the air. There was something else in the air. A gust of wind scattered 36 letters with colorful stamps. George counted as he helped pick them up. "It's time to go into town, George," his friend said. "Do you remember how to walk there? You can lead the way." George, curious as ever, took the long way from his house to town. As he walked, he counted 37 houses, 38 chimneys, and 39 trees. Can you follow George's path through the neighborhood? Here it is. Here's the path. Let's see, where did he begin? Oh, there, he started here. And I'm going to try to show you, but I don't know if I can. Let me try the best I can. Zoom. He went this way, that way. And now they're in town, right over here. In town, George and his friends saw workers fixing up a building. There was a very tall ladder, and George could not resist. He scampered up 40 rung past 41 windows. What a view! From up on top of the ladder, George counted 42 people. One of them was his friend Betsy. "Hi, George," Betsy said when he climbed down to see her. "Your friend told me you are learning to count." Then George walked Betsy to her school. "Why don't you come inside?" she asked. "There are lots of things to count in here." Like he climbed right up that ladder. Betsy was right. There were plenty of things to count in her classroom, while George's friends talked to the teacher. Almost looks like our classroom, guys. George counted 43 sparkly beads, 44 jars of paste, and 45 crayons. On the table, 46 colorful feathers were laid out. George was curious. What were they for? There's the feathers at the bottom. We're getting close friends. Betsy's classmates were making hats and decorating for a special celebration. George wanted to make decorations too. In fact, he turned himself into a decoration. Then George's new friends cleaned off 47 colored strips off the paper and a lot of glue. Oh no, George. "George is counting all the way to 50, Betsy said. Susan said, "We can help. How about counting paper clips?" She and her sister Sarah helped George find 48. Here they are. I'm going to show you this page first. All those paper clips. A moment later, the bell rang, and everyone was on the move. George counted 49 wheels. Then it was time for him to go home too. All of them on their scooters and bicycles and wagons. George ran and ran. He ran 50 steps all the way back to the man with the yellow hat. His friend was so happy to see him. "You did it, George," his friend said proudly. "You used your own 2 feet to count all the way to 50. The end. I hope you liked that book. I miss you all so much. I'll see you super soon. Love you.